Let's take a look at one more example of the method of completing the square. This time, though, it's going to be a little bit tricky, so just bear with me. Let's look at this example. Okay, we've got x squared plus 6x. Okay, so I'm going to write x squared plus 6x plus something that I don't know what that something is yet. The right-hand side is still going to be negative 28 for now. Now, to figure out what we have to do to complete the square, we're going to look at the coefficient of x. In other words, what is this number in front of x? Well, that's plus 6, right? And we call this b. So b here is 6. The next step is to go ahead and divide it by 2. We divide by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Finally, we're going to square the answer. Okay, so square. And 3 squared is 9. And that's the number that you need to add to both sides. So this is going to be plus 9, and on the other side is going to be plus 9. Okay, the next step is to figure out how do I write the left-hand side as a perfect square? Because when you added that 9, you now made this a perfect square trinomial. Okay, here's how we're going to do that. X plus, how do I know it's plus? Is because this is a plus. So if that's a plus, the coefficient of x, this is also going to be a plus. Now, what do I put over here? Well, remember this intermediate step when I divided by 2? That's what I put. Okay, and I've got x plus 3, and that's going to be squared because now it's a perfect square. What will happen on the other side? Well, here you have to use a calculator. Negative 28 plus 9. Well, that's the same as 28 minus 9, which is going to be 19, but it's actually going to be negative. So this is negative 19. All right. What do we do next? Next, we are going to use what we call the square root property. That means that we are going to take the square root of both sides at the same time. Okay? Now, on the left-hand side, the square root and the square are going to cancel each other out. And we're going to get x plus 3 equal. Here is very, very tricky part. Do you see that the number under the root is negative? You get negative 19. How do we deal with the square root of a negative number? If you are dealing with only what we call real numbers, then there will be no solution. So if your teacher wants you to just solve it in terms of real numbers, like numbers that are there and they're not imaginary in our head, you're going to say there's no number that you can multiply by itself and get negative 19. That doesn't exist. But in imaginary numbers, that does exist. And the answer will be, so square root of 19, you cannot simplify. You got to leave it like that. But then that square root of a negative, that's called imaginary unit, or I. And we're going to go ahead and multiply by that I, okay? It's like, remember, take out the negative, the answer is square root of 19. Now, remember that negative was there, turn it into I. And just as before, the square root property says that you don't get just one answer, but you get a plus minus answer. So this will be plus minus square root of 19I. Okay, now how do I write the final answer? Let's separate it into 2. We've got x plus 3 equal to plus square root of 19I. To solve, we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. Please don't try to combine the negative 3 and that square root of 19I. That you cannot combine. They're not combinable. They're not like terms. The first answer would be negative 3 plus square root of 19I. And then the second answer, what if it was negative? And negative was outside, so negative square root of 19I. Well, now you have to subtract 3 from both sides. And so the second answer is going to be negative 3 minus square root of 19I.